Hello again everybody, welcome back for day 5 of my 7-day video spree. We're nearing the end now. Today I'm going to be doing a review of Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. So I mentioned this in my wrap up of February yesterday, but I think it's a book that a lot of you guys have read and that's really strongly resonated with me, so I want to give it a full review, and that's what I'm here for today. So I'm going to do my review in the same format as ever. I'm going to talk about the concept, the plot, the characters and the writing, and then come up with a final score at the end, which if you've already watched my video yesterday you will know what the score is, but I've got loads of stuff to talk about with this, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think about all that as well. The other thing I need to say is spoiler alert, because I'm not going to talk about spoilers in Golden Sun to any great extent. There might be a few things I'll say which you might not know before you read it, but they aren't big reveals. There's nothing massive I'm going to spoil at all. But I am going to assume that anybody watching this has read Red Riding and knows what happens in that, because it's very hard to talk about the second book in a series without mentioning the end of the first book, etc. So there will be spoilers. If you've not read Red Riding and you don't want that spoiling for you, stop watching this now. The concept. As I've already mentioned, this is the second in a series that started with Red Rising in paperback last year. And the basic gist of Red Rising is that there's a stratified society, so it's organised by colours. The reds are kind of the slaves, miners, working class, etc. It goes all the way through the colours, so blues are pilots and kind of ship engineers, and the greens are techie, and the pinks are like prostitutes and beauticians, all the way up to the golds, who are the ruling class, and they're kind of superhuman, superpowered, super speed. Basically, they are gods to many of the lower colours. It's a really, really interesting concept. And in Red Rising, Darrow, who's a red, watches his wife be killed for kind of rebelling against the society. And he decides to join a group of rebels called the Son of Ares. And it's with that the plan is to incorporate him into Gold Society by kind of moulding him through really dangerous, painful surgery to be a gold. And he's then going to infiltrate and take it down from the inside. So in Red Rising, he becomes a gold, he undertakes kind of the elite gold training program and basically beats the system, beats the teachers, completely flips the paradigm and comes out looking like an absolute legend. And becomes apprenticed to his mortal enemy, the man who killed his wife. So that's the concept of Red Rising. And Golden Sun picks up from that moment and runs with it. The plot then carries on from where Red Rising finished. Darrow is apprenticed to his mortal enemy, and who just happens to be basically his girlfriend's dad, unbeknownst to them all. So that's quite interesting as well. Lots of dynamics to it. But it really turns into Game of Thrones in space. It's all lots of political parties vying against each other, and political backstabbing, and betrayals, and deception, and lots of really tense situations. There's one with some pretty horrendous scorpion-like creatures, scorpion snake-like creatures, and it's the tensest scene where any minute any of the characters could be attacked, and it's really, really, really cleverly done all the way through. I felt like it was one of those ones I really couldn't put down. The plot really develops, there's new strands that add in and disappear really cleverly, and the scale is just so much bigger than in Red Rising, and that's what really benefits it, because it makes it really much more, it feels more important, and it feels much more like it's now getting to do what the whole concept of the trilogy was, which is undermine Gold Society, and I thought it was brilliant. There are some really, really good twists in here as well, because there's so many characters, a few too many, but I'll come to them later, and because there's so much going on, there's constantly things at play and constantly things that shift. So the very, very last 50 pages, for example, rivals the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. It's pretty much all I can say. It is phenomenal. And all the way through there's some really good twists. There's a good twist with Lorne, which if you've read it you'll understand that you'd never expect, and that is brilliantly, cleverly done. And it's just really well constructed and put together. You can tell there's a lot of plotting gone into it. And it's one of the most enjoyable and complex books I've read in a while. It's much more enjoyable than Game of Thrones, but it's much similar in style. Overall, I think the plot is brilliant, and I've not enjoyed a book as much as the plot of this in a very, very long time. Characters is one of the places I think there are some slight hiccups in the book. There are too many. All the characters from Red Rising pretty much return and get fit into this larger political spectrum. So there are literally hundreds of characters that are named and important throughout in this, and it makes it really, really difficult sometimes to keep up. Pierce Brown does do a really, really good job of differentiating them. They're all very colourful characters. Pardon the pun, it was awful, I know. But the way he does it makes it not as bad as it could be. And he is more than willing to thin the herd when it needs doing, which is good. Characters kind of cycle in and out, so there's not all the characters in at once. But I do still feel like there are a few too many at some points, and it can detract a little bit from really getting to know the characters. I love Darrow and Severo and Mustang. I think they're really interesting characters explored even further in here. And there are some really good twists with other characters who kind of change from good to bad or bad to good that you don't expect. And the developments are really good. And if Pierce Brown in the third book can make me care as much about all the rest of the characters as much as I do about kind of the core 10 or 15, then it's going to be incredible, and I cannot wait for it already. The other thing to consider is writing, but I think in this case, that's not that essential. It is much more readable than Game of Thrones, which I know I keep comparing it to, but in terms of what they're trying to achieve and the scale and style of it, that's the most obvious comparison. Game of Thrones I found really difficult. This I never had problems reading. I think the best thing to say about this, and this is probably the ultimate compliment you could give the writing in this kind of novel, is that it doesn't obstruct the plot in any way, shape or form. There are some lovely images that are used, there's some really lovely turns of phrase, but the most important part is the fact that it doesn't feel stunted or difficult or heavy. It makes the really exciting plot and characters really accessible and easy to read, and I don't think in this case you could ask for any more from the writing. Overall then, I have to say, I think this book is incredible. I've really enjoyed the plot and the new scale and pace and urgency that's come with the second book in the series. I still really enjoy all the characters, and I think the way it's written and plotted and put together is absolutely fantastic. I blitzed through this much quicker than I even thought I would, and it is quite a chunky book, and I know I've raved about it so much that I've managed to convince some of my colleagues to read it, and they've had very similar feelings. So I'm really looking forward to the third. I cannot believe we've got like a 10-month wait until it comes out, but fingers crossed I'll get an advance copy at some point before then. I'm going to try my best to, at least. I'm going to have to give this a 9 out of 10. I think the only place it slips up is that the cast of characters is a little bit too big, and that in cases it does still feel like it's setting up for the third book, rather than being kind of a whole book itself. Completely understandable, because you have to leave more people wanting for the trilogy. I just feel like it's a little bit of a knock that means I can't give it a perfect score, but it is damn close, and I think a 9 out of 10 is the perfect score for this book. There we have it then, my review of Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Read it, it's amazing. If you've not read Red Rising yet and you're still watching, sorry for spoiling it, I did warn you, but if you haven't, you need to read it. It's an amazing 2 books of a trilogy, and the third's going to be just as good. As always, if you've liked the video, then like and subscribe down below, that'd be amazing. And if you've read any of the books, comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I know everybody I've spoken to has loved it, but it can vary quite a lot, so I'm intrigued to know what you guys have thought when you've read it. Otherwise, my Goodreads and Twitter are down below as ever. You've got 1 day left to get in touch with your questions. I'll be announcing the winner on Friday. Other than that, I really hope you've enjoyed this. I'll be back again tomorrow with another video, and other than that, I'll see you then.